It's Tuesday, so that means it's time for another top 10 video. This time in something I've never done before, which could open an entirely new concept of these top 10 videos, is my top 10 worst subclasses in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. If you want to see what those are, stay tuned. What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and let's get a couple things out of the way up front. One, big thank you to my patrons on Patreon. They voted that this be the top 10 video for this week. So if you don't like the topic, you can go yell at them or join, maybe, and then choose to throw your vote one way or another. Also, I'm approaching 30,000 subscribers at this point. So I want to say that I am planning to do a Q&A video where you guys submit comments to me on this video and any other video coming out until I hit that point. I will compile them all together and then put them in a document and basically answer your questions one at a time for about as long as it takes. And then the way I'll do it is I'll sort it by most liked question in the YouTube comments, and those will be the ones I answer in order till about I hit an hour. I wanted to put that out there up front because I already know that I'm sure I'm going to piss a whole bunch of people off with this video, because anytime you do a worst list, then, you know what you're getting yourself into. So the only rule basically is it has to be a published official 5th edition class. This means no third party. This means no Unearthed Arcana. So if you want to see that, let's start with number 10. Number 10. Number 10 is the Trickery Domain Cleric. I should say up front, I'm trying to do these in order of best of the worst, if you will, all the way down to worst of the worst at number 1. You'll also see a theme here that a lot of the top 10s that I do, or the ones on this list, are ones I have done fixing videos for, which I will link in the description, because I've assessed that I already think it's bad and needs help. So I fixed it. So number 10 is the Trickery Domain Cleric. The reason being, it is still a cleric at its base, which means it's still very powerful and good. Therefore, it can only be so bad. But as I discussed ad nauseum in that video, the problem is the Trickery Domain Cleric doesn't know what it wants to do. It gives you only one single benefit at level 1, where most other clerics get 2 or sometimes even 3 benefits at level 1. It gives you very powerful spellcasting abilities, and usually even official wording from Wizards of the Coast is if it is a cleric that focuses heavily on spellcasting, they give it potent cantrips at level 8, where you add your wisdom modifier to cantrip damage. But this one gets Divine Strike and it's poison damage, which is heavily resisted, but it makes it seem like it wants to be a melee-based cleric, but you give it an extremely powerful list of spells to use. Your Invoke Duplicity is decent, and if you keep your duplicate within 5 feet of you, you have advantage on attack rolls, furthering the idea of wanting to use this as a melee advantage, but it also requires your concentration to keep your duplicate up, which means you can't keep up very powerful other cleric spells that are long-running, something like Spirit Guardians. You can't keep that up while also having your duplicate, because they both require concentration. I don't know why Blessing of the Trickster is only limited to other people and not yourself. I don't know why you're not given proficiency in stealth checks. You have to use a Channel Divinity as an action to become invisible until the end of your next turn. You can't even cast a healing spell while invisible. It'll break your invisibility. Whereas other classes like a Warlock can just turn invisible as an action as long as they're not moving. You have to use a Channel Divinity, something you only get 1 of 3 uses for. And then again, Improved Duplicity, it makes more options for your level 2 ability. But see my fixing the Trickery Domain video to see what I did to adjust it and further thoughts on why I think this needs to be fixed. Number 9. Number 9 is the Assassin Rogue. The reason this is also so high on the list is because Rogue is a very powerful base class before you delve into any subclass related things. But Assassin just feels kind of blah, and I feel like it, like so many other things that I've looked at fixing, are a product of when they were released. Were some of these subclasses released now or later on down the 5th edition timeline, things would be different because of the way the development and subclass features and things have grown over time. So why do I think it needs to, or why do I think it's the worst? So it gets you proficiencies in Disguise Kit and Poisoner's Kit, one of the only few ways you can get access to Poisoner's Kit, so that's very cool. And really, in my mind, Assassin is a 3-level subclass, and then everything else is kind of pointless, right? So Assassinate, you had advantage on attack rolls against a creature that hasn't taken a turn in combat yet. That is very powerful. It triggers your sneak attack because you're getting advantage on the attack roll, so that is nice, potentially prompting a critical hit. In addition, any hit you score against a creature that is surprised is a critical hit. That is massively powerful for a rogue because your sneak attack damage will be doubled on a critical hit, and you have advantage on the attack already, so chances are that's going to mean you're going to have sneak attack. But if anyone who's watched Campaign 1 of Critical Role knows or has played an assassin themselves, you know that that becomes essentially, I don't want to call it like a drag or a slowdown, but you are working every angle you can to figure out how you're going to surprise your opponent. And does this count as surprise? Wait, would you say they're surprised? I don't know about you, but that seemed surprising to me because you're trying to angle for that critical hit. And again, regardless of whether that's good or bad, this is basically why most people take Assassin as a rogue subclass, and then everything else kind of falls by the wayside, and let's talk about that. At 9th level, you're going to get Infiltration expertise. You must spend 7 days, 7 in-game days, and 25 gold pieces to establish a history, profession, affiliations for an identity. You're crafting a false identity, right? You can't establish an identity that belongs to someone else. For example, you might acquire appropriate clothing, letters of introduction, official-looking certificate to establish yourself as a member of a trading house. Thereafter, if you adopt a new identity as a disguise, other creatures believe you to be that person until they given an obvious reason not to. So, one, it takes 7 days. Very few campaigns, unless you are in a very political intrigue, which maybe this has more benefit than, where you are just going to be able to take 7 days in-game where the rest of the party is going to be fine just like hanging out, while you take 7 days to research your character. The reason that I think this is it is done poorly is College of Whispers Bard can kill someone and don their persona and gain access to their surface thoughts, so they kind of know things about them and get a bonus to insight checks or deception checks to prove to be that person. A changeling can just make a persona on a whim, change who they are, what they look like, that kind of a thing. There are several background features. I think Charlatan may be one. I can't remember off the top of my head. That give you the ability to sort of craft a alternate identity or a dual, sort of not dual personality, but like a backup identity. Spy, I think, is another background as well. So there are things that let you do this easier and with less effort than spending 7 days. And why the 25 gold pieces, I don't know. At level 13, you get Imposter. You gain the ability to unerringly mimic another person's speech, writing, and behavior. You must spend at least 3 hours studying these 3 components of the person's behavior, listening to speech, examining handwriting, observing mannerisms. Your ruse is indiscernible to the casual observer. If a wary suspects something is amiss, you have advantage on deception checks made to avoid detection. Again, as I stated beforehand, College of Whispers Bard can do something similar. And then we have the Mastermind Rogue, which is after speaking, or where is it? Master of Tactics, Master of Intrigue. Oh, Master of Intrigue. Additionally, you can unerringly mimic the speech patterns and accent of a creature you can hear speak for 1 minute, enabling you to pass as a native speaker of a particular land, providing you know the language. So you can already mimic patterns and accents of somebody with 1 minute studying as a mastermind. And the actor feat also gives you bonuses to creating and acting to be somebody else. And anybody can gain access to that. And potentially, as a variant human, you could have actor at level 1, and whereas an assassin rogue would have to be level 13. And lastly, Death Strike. When you attack and hit a creature that is surprised, it must make a Constitution saving throw DC 8 plus your Dex plus your proficiency bonus. On a failed save, double the damage of your attack against the creature. Interesting, but again, we get back into your whole 17th level ability, your capstone ability in your assassin subclass requires that the creature you hit be surprised for it to even work. It doesn't work otherwise. So you have a situational ability for your level 17th ability, further driving that you trying to angle everything you can possibly do to get that surprise. And it doesn't even technically guarantee they will die. Yes, it's probably heavily implied, because if they are surprised, it is a critical hit, which is going to be doing at this point, I think, 8 or 7 d6 on the sneak attack damage. Those sneak attack dice will be doubled to at least 14 d6, and then the total damage that you roll, whatever it is, will then be doubled on top of that. So it will be a ton of damage regardless, and more than likely it will kill whoever you're fighting, but they need to be hit and then also surprised. Take into consideration the open hand monk, who at the same level 17, can do an attack that, where is it? Quivering Palm. Hit a creature with an unarmed strike, spend 3 key points. Let's see, you said the vibrations in their body. When you use this action, they must make a Constitution saving throw. If they fail, they die immediately, 0 hit points. And then even if they succeed, they take 10d10 necrotic damage. That is basically a true death strike, in that if you win, they go unconscious. They basically die if they go to 0 hit points if you hit them with this, rather than you dealing double damage, which potentially higher level foes, maybe they have resistance to slashing damage. If it's a barbarian and it's raging, all that crazy damage you just did is cut in half. I don't know. I just think Assassin could have been executed better. Maybe that's a topic for a future video. Number 8. Number 8 is War Magic Wizard. Again, a wizard is a very powerful base class, so this you have a lot of options there. So I put War Magic on here mostly because I played one for a while, and then as soon as I was given the opportunity to change out of it, I did. And I understand War Magic is sort of the genesis of the Lore Master Wizard from way back in the Unearthed Arcana, which is pretty powerful, if not completely broken in like an OP way. And they kind of took some aspects of that and added this to the War Magic Wizard. So let's talk about it. So at level 2, when you're hit by an attack and fail a saving throw, you can use your reaction to gain a +2 bonus to your AC. And for that attack, the singular attack, mind you, I think a lot of people miss that, or a +4 bonus to that saving throw. When you use this feature, you can't cast spells other than cantrips until the end of your next turn. So first of all, you can use this ability as a reaction, which is nice because it's for free, right? So you don't have to spend a spell slot to do so when you're hit by an attack or fail a saving throw. So it doesn't tell you, it doesn't necessarily tell you that you can use these to succeed. I guess this is another one of those things where, like, the DM needs to tell you that the DC was 17 and you rolled a 14, so you failed. So if you use your reaction, you add +4 to it. It's not really stated here. It says when you're hit by an attack or fail a saving throw, you can use your reaction to gain a +2 to your AC or a +4 to that saving throw. There's still, the way I'm reading it, potentially, there is no guarantee that you will succeed the saving throw if you add +4 to it. I assume this kind of, again, works like Shield, where you kind of know the number so you can know whether Shield will block it or not. So the saving throw is probably the most powerful part of this, because not many things let you reactionary add something to a saving throw. You have access as a wizard to Shield, which lets you add a +5 to your AC for the entirety till the start of your next turn. This lets you add +2 to your AC against a single attack. If you are then hit by a subsequent attack, that bonus to AC is gone, and it limits you on until the end of your next turn. You are only able to cast cantrips, but depending on the scenario you're in, that could be a severe limitation to your abilities. And then Tactical Wit, very powerful intelligence modifier, and to your to your initiative bonus. That's good. Power Surge at 6th level. Store a maximum number of surges equal to your intelligence modifier. Whenever you finish a long rest, your number of power surges resets to 1. When you successfully end a spell with Dispel Magic or Counterspell, you gain 1 power surge as you steal magic from the spell you foiled. If you end a short rest with no power surges, you gain 1 power surge. Once per turn, when you deal damage to a creature or object with a wizard spell, you can spend 1 power surge to deal extra force damage to that target. It equals half your wizard level. So again, at level 6, you could deal 3 extra force damage to a target, or wizard you can spend to deal to that target. So it doesn't even apply it. So if you cast a fireball, you could activate your power surge to deal half your wizard level in force damage to one target of the fireball, not everybody in the fireball range. Whereas something like at level 10, an evocation wizard can add their intelligence modifier to a damage roll, which a fireball is a damage roll, so it would add it to the entirety of fireball, hitting everybody, whereas you could add it to just a singular one. And again, the fact that this is, you start with a power surge. If you finish a short rest with that one, you get one, which is nice. But you are, again, it's another ability that is limited on your option to dispel magic or counterspell. The only thing is, there are ways you could technically game this by having, if somebody else has like a ritual spell that they can cast, they could put up a ritual spell without expending a spell slot, then you could cast Dispel Magic to end their spell to stack yourself up on power surges. But when you spend the power surge, you can only ever spend one. If you could spend multiple power surges on one attack to really, or one spell to really boost the damage up, like I have 5 power surges, I'm going to spend 5 power surges on this one spell to add 5 times half my wizard level to the damage to this one person to really knock them down. That could help. At level 10, when you maintain concentration on a spell, you get a +2 bonus to AC and saving throws. That's good. I can't really argue with that. That's a constant, always-on thing. Find a good concentration spell like haste or something else you're going to be using. Use it and get yourself the bonuses. And then at 14, when you use your Arcane Deflection feature, that's the level 2 feature, you can cause magical energy to arc from you. Up to 3 creatures of your choice that you can see within 60 feet of you take force damage equal to half your wizard level. So it's only 3 creatures, it's within 60 feet, and it's still at this point only going to be 7 force damage at a maximum 10 force damage. And reminder, that's you using your reaction to either add +4 to a saving throw or +2 to your AC against a single attack. But then you, the level 14 wizard, on your next turn are limited to only casting cantrips. It just, I mean, I hope I'm presenting this well. The best thing for this is a 2-level dip for a Eldritch Knight fighter or a Arcane Trickster rogue, so that when you're hit by an attack or saving throw, you can boost your AC or possibly succeed on the saving throw. And who cares if you're limited to cantrips on the next turn? Sneak attack is not a cantrip, and multiple attacks as a fighter is not a cantrip. That's, in my mind, what More Magic's best use is. Number 7. Number 7 is Circle of the Spores Druid. I did a whole fixing video on this, so I won't belabor the topic too much. You can check out that video. There'll be a link in the description as well, where I go over my problems with the Spores Druid and how I would fix it. Probably one of the best parts about the Spores Druid is it is a Druid that gets access to additional circle spells, similar to Circle of the Land Druid, without actually having to be a Circle of the Land Druid. And it does get Chill Touch as well, which is a nice little bonus as a cantrip that you get access to. But as I stated in my other video, a lot of these abilities, when it was presented in the Unearthed Arcana, were very powerful and useful and made me actually want to play a Druid, whereas the versions we see here are significantly hampered because a lot of your abilities are tied to a Constitution saving throw, a save that a lot of monsters and enemies can make due to their high hit points and high Constitution, and then your ability does no damage at all. It doesn't even do half on a success. In the Unearthed Arcana, it was just a set number of damage, and the damage was low. Here it is a die roll that increases, but it's a con save or no damage, so most of your class features could potentially just be useless and do nothing. And then again, you are limited in some of the summonings that you could do. The level 14 ability was unchanged, and that's actually really powerful, but the majority of the things you're going to have throughout the class don't really do a whole lot. Again, see the fixing video for more information. Number 6. Number 6 is the Battlerager Barbarian. Once again, I did a fixing video on this as well. See the link in the description to see what that's about and my further thoughts. But basically, this came out, again, as a product of when it was released. It was a Sword Coast Adventures Guide subclass, which means it probably was forgotten about, which it seems to have been. It was one of the two racially restricted subclasses in all of 5th edition. It hampers you by giving you abilities all tied to your spiked armor. Spiked armor is garbage. It's not really upgradable. It limits your AC significantly because you have to have this armor that you're wearing that gives you a AC of 14 plus your dexterity modifier with a maximum of 2. It is medium armor. You can then choose a feat if you want to get medium armor master to make that become a 14 plus 3, a maximum of 17 AC no matter what, and almost all of your abilities are tied to your spiked armor. So if you don't wear spiked armor, you're not having access to your subclass abilities, which is stupid because you get unarmored defense as a barbarian up front, so you could potentially have more AC out of armor than you do in armor, but you need to wear it to access abilities. So you deal extra damage to folks. You can fight them with your armor spikes, which again, the biggest thing here is you can do a bonus action. While you're wearing your armor and raging, you can make a bonus action attack every turn, which is nice because that's a way to have access to a bonus action attack. If you grapple a creature, you can deal damage to them. You do get temporary hit points when you reckless attack, so that can keep you alive. And dash as a bonus action while you're raging is nice. It's always a good thing to have, but that can also counteract if, one, the bonus action to activate a raid, the bonus action attack we talked about before. If you choose to go Great Weapon Master, then you're not even using your armor spikes at all, so that would deal with the offhand or the bonus attacks from that. And then at 14, whenever somebody hits you, they take damage, which makes no sense because if they're hitting the spiked armor, why does them hitting the spiked armor deal damage to them at level 14, but not from the time you wear the armor in the first place? Again, further thoughts in the fixing video. Number 5. Look, for number 5, another Sword Coast Adventurers Guide subclass. Seems to be a theme here. The Purple Dragon Knight. Yet again, I did a fixing video on this one as well. That was a relatively recent video. But the Purple Dragon Knight is not that great because all of its abilities are tied to your base fighter abilities. You don't have any unique mechanic, anything that makes you better, really, than a fighter than when you use your own abilities, like Second Wind or Action Surge or Indomitable. They help an ally, but that in and of itself provides a problem because are you going to use Second Wind when you don't need it to heal your allies, which you can't even use it to heal them up from 0 hit points? They have to be conscious. Or if you need the healing and they don't, you're sacrificing your Second Wind. This whole basic, your 3rd level ability, you're using Second Wind to heal you and it does nothing for your allies. You get a simple, a persuasion expertise, which is fine. When you use Action Surge, you can pick an ally who can have one melee can use their reaction, provided they can see or hear you, to make one weapon attack, whereas a Battle Master can choose to do this by foregoing one of their own attacks, allowing that person to do it, and then adding a superiority die to the damage. And then Bulwark is the most ridiculous, stupid feature at level 15. When you decide to roll an Indomitable, so you need to fail a saving throw, to an Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma save, not even any saving throw, which is how your Indomitable feature works. You can roll Indomitable on an Intelligence, Wisdom, Charisma saving throw, and if there is one ally within 60 feet who has also failed the same effect from the same thing you're re-rolling, then they can choose to re-roll based on that. You still have to use your Indomitable. You still have to fail. You can't even give it to them if you succeed and they fail. It's bad. I put a bunch of really good fixes in my mind in the video. Go check it out. Number 4. Number 4, appropriately, is the 4 Elements Monk from the Player's Handbook. I don't think I really need to go over this, but if you want to see me do that, I did a fixing video on it down in the description where I talk for a very long time about what's wrong with this class and how I can fix it. And I'm not even sure if that did a good job, but you guys seem to like it, so there you go. Basically, you're trying to be the Avatar from Avatar The Last Airbender by gaining access to the ability to bend elements, fire, earth, water, air. Sounds fundamentally amazing, and it should be, right? That's a cool thing. Does it execute on that? 100% not. You have only, what is it, 4 different disciplines you can choose from a massive list of things. And most of these disciplines just do things like replicate a spell that another class could have at significantly higher, earlier levels than you. And you're also hampered in your ability to upcast those spells by, this key point table that they have here. Sun Soul Monks can cast Burning Hands as a bonus action after doing an attack, which validates the Burning Hands here. Elemental Attunement is essentially elemental prestidigitation. You have to choose it at first, and then obviously you're going to switch it out later, try to get something else. And a lot of the cool other abilities, there's only 4 really of them: Fangs of the Fire Snake, Fist of Unbroken Air, Shape the Flowing River, and Water Whip. Shape the Flowing River is cool. It doesn't really have any combat applications. Water Whip used to be really cool when it was a bonus action. Now it's not as great, and then again, you have access to a handful of different spells. I would say check out the fixing video that I did. I used a bunch of really good crowdsourced ones that people had done, combined them all together into what I thought made the most sense, and then tried to put it in a way that would give you the ability to really, truly feel like you are the Avatar. Number 3. Number 3 is the Wild Magic Sorcerer. A really cool concept, but horribly executed in a lot of ways, and I'm sure you've all seen it. And I'm not going to even talk too much about the fact that you can absolutely murder a low-level party immediately with one errant roll of the Wild Magic Surge. My point is, your whole cool thing that you can do is Wild Magic Surge, and there's no fundamental mechanic for you to actually be able to do it. It's all if this, then if this, then it could happen. Let's read it, right? Once per turn, the DM can have you roll a d20 immediately after you cast a sorcerer spell of first level. It's not a requirement that you roll a d20 after you cast a first level or higher sorcerer spell. The DM can choose to have you roll. Now, let's take a look at that in and of itself. That could be a very potentially causing a schism in the party or at the table. So if it's a really important critical roll that you need to make to do something cool, to cast a cool spell, whatever it is, and the DM says, you know what, make a d20 roll, let's see if you get a Wild Magic Surge. Well, what if the Wild Magic Surge then further hampers the party, and this was a really critical moment? Was the DM singling you out and then doing that on purpose? If the DM never makes you do it because they constantly forget, and then they decide to make you do one out of the blue, well, why now? Was there a reason why they're making me do this? Is this to punish me? I don't know. Alternatively, the DM could say you have to do it every time you cast a first level spell or higher, and that could ridiculously slow down the game, because every time you cast a spell as a full spellcaster, you're going to need to make this roll. That could be a problem. So there's no real balance on when to do this. And then let's talk about it, go even further. So roll a d20 after you cast a first level spell or higher, assuming the DM has you roll. Then if you roll a 1 on that d20, so a 1 in 20 chance of you actually being able to do that, then you roll on the Wild Magic Surge. If the effect is a spell, it's too wild to be affected by your meta magic. It normally requires concentration. It doesn't require concentration in this case, and it lasts for its full duration. So, crux of the problem, if the DM decides on a whim to allow you to roll a Wild Magic Surge, then you then need to roll a d20, and then you need to then roll a 1 on that d20 to then roll the percentile to then figure out what the surge is. So there's only a 5% chance that you will ever actually roll the number you want to have. Assuming you want to have a Wild Magic Surge happen. I imagine you do if you picked Wild Magic Sorcery as your subclass. You probably want to have it happen. So in my games, anytime anyone's decided to play a Wild Magic Sorcerer, I sat down and had a conversation with them and said, what are your thoughts about rolling on the Wild Magic Surge table every time you roll or cast a spell? Or let's figure out a mechanic that you like to make it something hard and fast, so that maybe it's every time you cast a spell at first level or higher, a number ticks up. It starts at 1 and it goes, and then whenever you cast a spell of first level or higher, you need to roll a d20. If you roll under that number, then it goes off, or over that number, then it goes off. Some sort of function that will allow you to make it a set number so you can know when to expect or potentially have to roll. Figure that mechanic out up front so that it's not on a whim. Going after that, I'm not even going to touch, like I said, I've been a part of the team that was killed by a fireball at level 1, because one of the things is a fireball spell is centered on you and goes off, and that's 8d6 fire damage, and average, you're going to kill a first level party easily. Tides of Chaos is a cool ability, right? When you can choose to gain advantage on an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, but you can't use that again until you finish a long rest, which I think is dumb. I think that should be short rest. But anytime you regain this feature, the DM can have you roll on the Wild Magic Surge table immediately after you cast a sorcerer spell of first level or higher. You then regain the use of this feature. So, anytime before you regain the use of this feature. So you have to have spent it, and then if the DM has you roll on the Wild Magic Surge table after you cast a spell, then you get this feature back. So that's cool. So there's a feature, but again, that feature is tied to the mechanic we discussed before. Bend Luck, when you or another creature you can see, so not even yourself, makes an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can use your reaction to spend 2 of your sorcery points at 6th level to roll a d4 and add it to the number rolled as a bonus or penalty to that creature's roll. So it could be an enemy, but the way I look at it as, Guidance is a cantrip, and that adds a d4 to an ability check, that you can just do that for free, anybody who has that. Bless picks 3 creatures and adds a d4 to attack rolls and saving throws for a minute to 3 creatures. And then Bane is a saving throw, but it's a d4 minus a d4 to attack rolls, and I think saving throws as well, for a minute against multiple creatures. So there are many ways to do this significantly longer and apply to more creatures more frequently than you to use your reaction and 2 sorcery points to do so. Controlled Chaos, 2 rolls on the Wild Magic Search table, that's fine. You got to get access to it first. And then when you roll Spell Bombardment, when you roll damage for a spell and roll the highest number possible on any of the dice, choose one of those dice, roll it again, and add that damage to the roll. You can only use this feature once per turn. That's kind of dumb. It's a cool 18th level feature. You made it to 18th level as a sorcerer, and you can reroll 1 die to add extra damage. I mean, Chaos Bolt lets you do that kind of in and of itself, and it just keeps going. I would just say, you have exploding dice. Let them have exploding dice. That's fine by me. It would be really powerful, but you're at 18th level with a limited sorcerer spell list. Let them have their fun. Again, I did a video on fixing the sorcerer as a whole, including what spells I would give, 2 spells per level for the Wild Magic Sorcerer. Link in the description for that as well. Number 2 is one of my most requested fixing videos to make, so I won't give away too much on what I would fix on it, but I will tell you why it's one of the worst subclasses in 5th edition, and that is the Undying Warlock. Once again, we find ourselves in the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. It is a very cool thematic patron, right? It's an undying, undead patron, right? They give you some options here, right? Vecna, Lich Queens, Undying Courts, all sorts of really cool, interesting lore behind your patron. Very cool stuff. Fundamentally, it sucks. I'll be upfront with you, it's bad. Let's talk about why. Spell list. First of all, the spell list is arguably one of the weakest out of all of the patrons out there. False Life, I get it. Armor of Agathis is better for temporary hit points, and it has a punish. Ray of Sickness doesn't scale very well. It's good early on. It'll drop off later. Blindness, Deafness, it's a good spell. Silence, also a good spell. Silence is also a ritual spell, which you won't have access to unless you take Tome. Feign Death, I get why it's here. It's not a very good spell. Speak with Dead, also very good, but there's an invocation that lets you kind of do it all the time. Aura of Life, potentially pretty good. Death Ward, solid spell regardless. Contagion, good, albeit a little funky. And Legend Lore, I don't really know why it fits here. I guess maybe the undead living for a long time. Legend Lore is a good one, but situational. First level, Among the Dead, you get Spare the Dying as a cantrip. Nothing wrong with that. Problem is, and you also get advantage on saving throws against diseases. Well, first of all, a Grave Domain Cleric gets Spare the Dying as a cantrip. They get it as a bonus action, and it works out to range. So Spare the Dying, way better. Also, Celestial Warlocks also get Spare the Dying. So that's not really unique for you. Advantage on saving throws against diseases. Diseases aren't super common in 5th edition. They do exist. If this was advantage on saving throws against poison, it would be a little bit better. Or flat out immunity to disease, right? Paladins get that at 3rd level. Give it to these guys a little bit early. And then you basically have this, additionally undead have difficulty harming you. If an undead targets you directly with an attack or a harmful spell, they must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, they must choose a new target or forfeit targeting someone instead of you, potentially wasting the attack or spell. On a successful save, the creature is immune to the effect for 24 hours, and then undead is also immune to this effect for 24 hours if you target it with an attack or a harmful spell. So this works essentially sanctuary against undead, but the problem is it only works against undead. So, I mean, if you know you're going to be playing, like, say, I don't know, maybe like Curse of Strahd, or a game where you know you're going to have heavy undead connections, this could be a very powerful ability. But for the most part, I don't think any of the other patrons for Warlocks give you something that is cut off to a type of enemy. Like even the Fiend, like the Fiend Warlock, one of the best ones out there, gives you really cool abilities that apply across the board, not just to undead. 6th level, Defy Death. You can regain hit points equal to 1d8 plus your Constitution modifier when you succeed on a death saving throw, or you stabilize a creature with Spare the Dying. That's once per long rest. That's bad, right? Again, like we talked about, one of the benefits of the Grave Domain Cleric is kind of similar to this. Whenever they heal somebody, they heal them the maximum amount when they heal them from 0 hit points. That, again, came out significantly later. It validates that, sort of. You get hit points when you succeed on a death saving throw. Again, Celestial Warlock eventually can stand back up to half hit points and damage creatures around them when they go down to 0 hit points, or down to 0 hit points, not even succeeding on a death save. Also, I feel like you probably should have thrown advantage on death saves somewhere in here. So again, the fact that that feature is only once per long rest seems kind of funky to me. Undying Nature at 10th level, this is basically a ribbon. This is a character fun thing at level 10 that doesn't really do too much of interest, like of substantial crunchiness to your character, right? You can hold your breath indefinitely. You don't require food, water, or sleep, although you still require rest to reduce exhaustion and still benefit from finishing short and long rests. In addition, you age at a slower rate. For every 10 years that pass, your body ages only 1 year, and you're immune to being magically aged. That's a cool thing. You should probably have something else. And then Indestructible Death at 14th level. On your turn, you can take a bonus action to regain hit points equal to 1d8 plus your Warlock level. Additionally, if you put a severed body part of yours back in place when you use this feature, the part reattaches. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. Again, Celestial Warlock basically has a whole bunch of a healing pool that they can use, which is better than this. You get like a little inborn self-heal, which isn't even as good as a fighter's second wind ability, which they can do as a, you can also do as a bonus action, so that's something. But a fighter is a D10 plus their fighter level. They get that at level 1. It comes back on a short rest. I feel like that's a problem when your level 14 ability is once per short or long rest. It's not as good as a fighter first level ability. And then like a fun, funky part where you can put a body part back on if it falls off. Like that's a cool roleplay aspect of you being able to like cut off your arm. But how often do severed limbs come up in a game? Like unless you're obviously this kind of a warlock and you're doing that for a reason. But like it's very rare that something in 5th edition as it's written in a stat block can cut off an arm or a body part. Obviously, like a Vorpal Blade cuts a head off and a Sword of Sharpness can cut a limb off, but that's a pretty rare thing. So again, it's a good flavor-wise, needs to be fixed. Number 1. And number 1 on this list is Oath of the Ancients Paladin. Nah, come on, who am I kidding? It's not Oath of the Ancients Paladin. This is Beastmaster Ranger, obviously. Everybody knew this was coming. I don't even really know if I need to say anything here with Beastmaster Ranger. First of all, Ranger in 5th edition is kind of a poor class, as I'm sure many of you know, and Beastmaster Ranger is just that much worse. I could talk ad nauseum about that. I did a video a while back when I met with Jeremy Crawford at D&D Live and had a conversation with him about it, about how Battlemaster or Beastmaster Ranger pales in comparison to Battlesmith Artificer, and Artificer is just better. And he said, well, we're going to not let things we did in the past hold us up for what our design in the future, but they have no desire to go back and fix it. And if you don't believe me that Ranger is a problem, they tried to fix it like 4 times. That's an exaggeration. They tried to fix it at least 2 times in Unearthed Arcana because they recognized that something was wrong. In fact, one of the fixes had the hit die for the Ranger being 2d6. Not even like a d10 or a d12 like every other class ever in pretty much any edition. They had the Ranger's hit die being 2d6, so your minimum hit die was, it was crazy. And then they did the revised Ranger, which they canceled, and then the Unearthed Arcana class features had major overhauls to the Ranger. They clearly know something is wrong, but they just don't seem to want to admit it. The main reason right here is this section, the problem with the Beastmaster Ranger. One is the whole thing is you put all of your subclass features into having this Beast Companion, and it can die exceptionally easily, and then you have nothing. Basically, that's the problem. So the Beast obeys your commands as best it can. It takes its turn on your initiative. On your turn, you can verbally command the Beast where to go for no action. You can use your action to verbally command it to attack, dash, disengage, or help. If you don't issue a command, it takes the dodge action. Once you have the extra attack feature, you can make 1 weapon attack when you command the Beast to take the attack action. If you're incapacitated, the Beast acts on its own, focusing on protecting you and itself. The Beast never requires your command to use its reaction, and so on. So the point being is, at level 3, you can choose to attack yourself or have your Beast Companion attack. Eventually, when you have extra attack, you can forego one of your attacks to have the Beast make an attack. So it does 1, you do 1. And then eventually, at 7th level, it can do a bunch of cool stuff as a bonus action, but one of the things it can do as a bonus action is not attack. So you can't even, if it can attack as a bonus action, that could fix some things. And then at 11, it can take 2 attacks when you would take 1 attack, which is cool. But again, that's still a problem because you are still limiting yourself to only 1 attack at that point. And I was just trying to see if I had it, but I don't. I did a recent video on the Unearthed Arcana, which talks a little bit about that. And basically, there is if you look at the original wording of the Beastmaster Ranger, it basically would do nothing, was how it sort of went. It was just like, if you don't give it a, let's see, is this it? Let's see if I can pull this up here. An OG version of the Player's Handbook real quick. So you can just see here, because this is so ridiculous. The Beast, obviously the one I just read was the current wording, but the Beast obeys its commands as best it can. It takes its turn on your initiative, though it doesn't use an action. Though it doesn't take an action unless you command it to. That was what it was. Yeah. So basically, in the original edition, obviously it's been reworded since, was if you didn't give it an action, your Beast did nothing. It actually would do more if you died, because it would try to protect itself or you. So it was actually more useful if you were unconscious. Again, it's the Beastmaster Ranger. You knew it was coming. It needs to be fixed. So that's it, folks. Thank you once again to, and a big shout out to all of my patrons over on Patreon. You can see a list of them somewhere over here. They voted. One of the perks you get of being a patron is voting on what future video topics will be and when they should come out. I know a lot of you probably, and again, my most requested fixing it video is the Beastmaster Ranger, or the Ranger in general. And I'm proud to tell you that it is in the works. It is actually pretty much done at this point, and I am hoping to actually get people a chance to play test my version of it, because it needs so much love. We all know that I desperately want to have this be a really good video. So I actually want to have people play test the class as it stands to tell me where I need to tweak and adjust. So it's coming. Stay tuned. And I also wanted to say now, regarding the Q&A video, as we are approaching 30,000, once again, I'll just reiterate, leave your thoughts, obviously, on the video here, and your thoughts on my top 10 list, and your own personal top 10 worst subclasses in the description. I'd appreciate to see what other people think are the worst ones. But feel free to also leave questions on this video, and questions you'd like to have me answer in a Q&A. Any questions, pretty much fair game, so throw it out there, and I'll do my best to answer it in a future Q&A video for 30,000 subscribers. Speaking of that, if you haven't subscribed already, now would be a great time to do so, and ring the notification bell so you can stay up to date on when my videos come out. I was doing a period there where I was releasing videos at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Crazy times. I'm going to try to get back to a more regular upload schedule. And then, obviously, if you're a patron at a certain tier, you get access to those videos the second they hit YouTube, rather than having to wait till like noon the next day. So, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next week with another Top 10.